What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another video here on the Pool Focus Podcast. I'm Quentin, and today's guest is an amazing photographer from my hometown in Calhoun County, West Virginia. It's Mr. Derek Villers. Derek, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me over.
Heck yeah, man. Just kind of give you like a little background of like you and I. We've known each other for a very long time. Is we really didn't start like talking until like. I would probably say
After
like
school.
definitely
Yeah.
after school, but like we went to school together. We've known each other. We've known each other's families for a very long time.
Yeah.
When I say like Calhoun is a small place, it's a very very small place and stuff.
Yeah, people don't realize until you really sit down and talk to them just how small it is.
Mm-hmm.
Explaining statistics to people, and I'm very good at it for Calhoun now because my whole job is making them believe in why Calhoun should be their next home. It's hard for people to understand just how small it is.
Yeah. I know. We shot a couple times. There was a few. I think it was back in like 2017. I was working at AB. I know that. It was like a month before I had my car broken into, and I had like my hard drive and my drone and all that stuff stolen. But we had like some crazy, like great footage on there because we spent like a whole weekend we shot. Dude, I will never forget this. So we had the drone during the Wood Festival, and we shot fireworks, and we ran that drone through. And dude, I will never forget. That would have been some of the best footage of my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And I'll never be able to see that again and stuff. That was all on that hard drive, and it just bums me out so much. Like those, I remember like you and I, we was literally sitting there, and we both looked at each other, and we was like, dude, like that's incredible. Like,
Yeah.
but
And it was the first time that I had ever tried to shoot low light.
yeah.
And the fireworks as well as the rides.
Yeah.
Because the lights, like I still have a really cool picture that I'll shoot over to you. I'm sure I hope you still got some of yours. But
I have a couple that was on my Facebook that I posted, and that's the only ones I have. But yeah, that's when we was like we was doing like long exposure with like the carnival lights and stuff too.
Yeah.
We was just like running around that day. That was really cool. Like, especially for like the Wood Festival because it's just like it's a different culture, it's like a wild wild west, I feel like, and for us we was like, nah, we're just going to focus on photography, and we was just like running around doing that was really cool. But that was pretty much I think the last time we've actually shot, which is I feel like we were due for like at least a trip or something. I just went up to Seneca Rocks with Zach Hanshaw from back home, and we had a great time, and I feel like that's something that you would freaking love. We stayed at this little Airbnb, and it was like 130 after everything, and it's like 40 minutes to like 20 minutes away from like Seneca Rocks, Dolly Saws, everything up there. It was perfect, and just to going up there and just shooting was nice.
I was just in Davis this weekend.
Oh,
I just
nice.
Came back from there last night. We actually got a little Airbnb, and for 2 days, like it's super cheap. But we rented an entire apartment so that we could just kind of go back and forth and do things, hike the Blackwaters Falls, did the rivers and stuff. It's just nice to get away, and there's so much content and stuff there that you could shoot. Like if I was a full-time content creator or a realtor in that area, I have so much that I could do there.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll get into back home.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot.
It's definitely one of my favorite spots just in West Virginia, and I told Zach that when he was up there, I was like, we was up there, spent probably 2 hours in the actual locations, and he gave me like 2 YouTube videos. It gave me a whole bunch of galleries. It gave me like a whole bunch of TikToks and Reels, and it's just like you could spend weeks up there and still not even like scratch the surface of some of the content that you can get. So it's beautiful though, and that's just in one season. Like in fall, it's almost like the traffic picks up because a lot of people go up there and they like leaf peep and but so let's talk a little bit about like your interest in photography and how are you like you're using it with like your day-to-day job and things like that. I saw that you're starting to create some TikToks now and stuff.
Yeah, it's so nerve-wracking, dude. It's not one. So you know where we both came from.
Yeah.
Now in school, you much like now, you were still that kid that everyone liked, respected. You were outgoing, easy
Yeah.
to like talk to, so it was like super easy.
Yeah.
You and I both grew up kind of similar. Neither
Yeah.
one of us were rich
No,
by any
I'm still
means.
not. So
Yeah,
it's
so it's like one of those things where school for me was not good. I was not a good kid, and I wanted to change all of that. Like, and it was due to the environment in which I grew up. But when I decided that I was going to do something, as a career, I realized, like, in this small area, you've got to either go for it or you're stuck. And you went for it. You moved out. And I think there's something great about leaving your hometown, whether you come back later or do whatever. But in Calhoun in general, I either had to make it work or leave.
yeah.
So I tried the
Yeah.
leaving thing. I left a little bit, came back, but it's so nerve-wracking for me to to create things or have this material. One, because I'm kind of private. I try to be as for companies and businesses, you have to kind of be public as much as you can. But my kids and stuff, I want to be private, but I still am proud of them. So the little content, the little things I would shoot, was just kind of any little trip or an adventure I take with the kids or I can do is just kind of make something cool, put it out there. I don't really like hearing myself or like everyone goes through that. It's hard.
I've had so many people that's listened to the podcast and is like, yeah, Quentin, you have a really great speaking voice. I was like, have you heard anybody else talk in your life? Like, I do not. Like, and
I
they're
feel
just,
the same thing about me.
and I'm getting sort of used to it now because I'm starting to put more of my content straight into YouTube, and you have to get into like that influencer type of like sound. But it's just like when I first did my very first video, it was the cringiest thing ever, and I was just like, I didn't know how to edit. I still don't feel like I do in a sense when I'm looking at like bigger content creators, but it's starting to flow better, and I'm wanting to like challenge more of it and stuff. But I definitely understand what you're doing. Like, you're taking just a simple 15-30 second clip on TikTok now, like you're like, people don't understand how much goes into it, especially if you want to do like one of those, like just a travel TikTok or something like that. Like, you're taking 20 clips and trying to mush them into
Get it
it,
down.
So
It's a huge learning curve, and the main thing that I want to focus on, and my entire goal with that ultimately is to drive traffic, to my business like
Right.
everybody does.
Yeah.
But in reality, is to show people, and I'm trying to do this everywhere I go, but more specifically like day trips and things that I do in Calhoun with my kids regularly, or my wife, whomever, just to show we are here.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things, like, I'm really proud of where I came from because I wouldn't be who I am without being from there. But at the same time, it's like, it's so scary to even start doing that because sadly enough, we come from an area where the majority of the people are very close-minded. It's very an old way of life, which I respect and I love. But it's also one of those where it can be the biggest pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll touch, I think, very briefly on some of those things and stuff because was like one thing. So I recently did. I'm starting to get into. Well, I don't want to say I'm starting to get into it, but like I'm starting to challenge myself on like car photography, and I started posting about it, and I had like 3 or 4 people from back home that did it, and I reached out to them, and I was trying to think. I was like, well, I don't want them to drive like all the way down here to Charleston, or I don't want them to like put more miles on their car, or like trying to like it's not that type of production, it's like a couple hours but then I'm just like, man, I don't even know where to take somebody for like a location. It's like many people that takes photos and stuff in that area, like we go straight to the park,
I know.
And I think right now one of the coolest things that in our county that is starting to get talked about, is not as nearly, but it's just one of those things. It's just the stargazing, platform that's out there and what they're doing. And I want to do some content out there, but at the same time, I want to do that content. Like, I want to make sure I have all the gear that makes the content good because that's my home. Like,
Yeah.
because mom and dad, they've asked about it a couple times, and after I did the Seneca trip and I showed those photos, they was like, "You need to go out there." I was like, "I do, but like, if I want to do it, I want to make sure I got the best stuff so I can show the best to everyone else." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of like, you know, you just want to make sure your home is like clean before you let visitors in or something. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
type of mentality. But yeah, it's just, there's not that many locations. I know when I worked for tourism, the not only Calhoun, but it's like the surrounding counties, it was like the bald spot of the state. You know, like tourism attractions alone, there's just no like economy there and stuff. However, the potential is there, and I have said, I mean, you got the Little Canal River that's perfect for floats, you know, which is I mean, Tour de Cole, for instance, which is right down here in St. Albans, that wasn't a very big thing until a few years ago. Now that place is packed, and all they do is just float casually down the river. It's not like rapids or anything like that. But now it's I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be a thing in Calhoun, especially like.
And they're working on it.
Yeah,
And a lot of that is because a lot of that stuff was held out of there for years.
Yeah.
Politics and whatever aside, it was all the old way or no way.
Yeah.
And now we're starting to see people like myself and other people that are like, hey, listen, if we're going to stay here, if we're going to make this home for our kids, which, by the way, will not put up with that. Like, the younger generation is like, either I have what I want or I'll go to it. Like, they're not afraid.
Well, I think a good reminder and stuff, too, is like 50 years ago when even if you moved to a different county, it was a massive process of, you know, like, you know, there's only one car per family or something like that, you know.
True.
There was only, I mean, and hell, even if you go back like 100 years, well, you just don't make a trip like that. You like where you are, you settled, and that's it. Yeah. But it's like now, as easy it is, most people, like, we can have everything moved in a day. You can be in an apartment clear across the state.
Yeah.
For a fraction of the cost, in a sense, you know what I mean? So, like, moving is not as difficult. So it's just like, you can't just, people can just pick up and go, you know? And especially if they don't have like kids or if they don't have like other responsibilities or anything like that. Like Ken and I, we talk about that, as well as, like, you know, we love West Virginia. We know that's our home. We want to like better it, but at the same time, it's like, we want to go and see something else too, you know, like, we've been talking about, like, you know, like North Carolina, or just like, we went through a spurt there for a while. We was just like, let's go Montana. Like, let's just do that. We was literally looking at houses in Montana, and it's like, and you know how our house searching is going. Like, we still don't know what the hell to do, because you're definitely our guy and stuff on it, but it's just like, we're just so indecisive of real. We want one, but at the same time, we was like, man, if we get one here,
what if we move? What if we?
Yeah. Well, like, so we're in this really weird period of our housing search and stuff right now. But we love Charleston, and we look at it and we're like, okay, well, everything's right here. I mean, I've kind of like established myself as a photographer to get, you know, business. Her commute's only a mile away,
which is good.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we ever want food or we want groceries or anything like that, it's just, we can be out at the store, be back in 30 minutes, you know? And it's just like, I don't know. But another part of me, I want to go out and I want to find a house. And what's you really used to is like, where we grew up, our closest neighbor was like, you know, 2 miles away or something like that. So it's like, you go outside and no pants on, people was like, they didn't think anything of it, you know?
It's just a thing. I'm taking out the trash.
I'm just taking the trash out. Don't have a shirt on. I'm walking 2 miles to the bus stop, or, you know, it's just like little things like that I'm just like, man, I just wish I had that type of
that without without you know, the distance you have to go to do something.
Yeah.
And that has been the hardest part for me too, because I want my kids to have things. So we travel a lot. Mm-hmm. Like when we go places, like, we do it kind of big because I never did that as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, my biggest thing was, and I lived in poverty the entire childhood through high school. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing for me was, I'm not going to let my kids not experience things because of one, being afraid to do it, or two, the financial situation.
Yeah.
And so I'll kill myself every day to make sure that they get to experience something, because I may have lost, I know I did. I lost a lot of opportunities due to not being pushed, first of all, and not financially being able to be a free thinker and be supported in that, because that's not big where we're from.
No, I definitely, I think the pushing factor is the biggest thing. In high school and stuff, like I talked a lot. I was I mean, a professional bullshitter in a way, you know, and I felt like, they got you through high school because our high school, there's only a couple people that really did challenge me. And I've made a video about that and kind of talked about it. But other than that, not a single person. And you look back at it and you're just like, come on now. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I was a 2.5 GPA, but I could have been 4.0 if I just tried. And it wasn't because they wasn't challenging. It's like, that's how easy it was to get that, you know? And I'm just like, I don't know. I saw it completely different. I went to college, and then it's like, that was the first time I did a research paper. That was the first time I did, like,
you're like, oh crap.
I was like, freshman year, I was on academic probation because of it. Yeah. It just did not prepare me. And I was like, and then they was like, you're not going to be able to enroll in classes. Like, you're done almost. And I was like, I was like, what do you mean I'm done? I just can't come back? And they're like, no, you won't be welcome back. And I was like, well, you're Glenville. Like, you take everybody and stuff. But they was like, no. And I was like, okay. So then that's when, like, I kind of, like, straightened up and figured out that, I need to take it serious and stuff. And that was a huge, like, growing up point. But I should have never been 20 when that happened. Like, that should have been way earlier and stuff in my life.
Well, and it wasn't for me either until, of course, when I got out of high school, it was just your normal, like, whatever job you can get or whatever. You're stuck in a small town.
Yeah.
And I want to know what it was like for you, because when the same thing, bullshitting your way through whatever, like you said in that, it was a B-Shep or whatever episode where you were talking about how you, like, dude, you can't bullshit me. I did it my entire life,
Yeah.
And I felt like a lot of the times, like trips to New Orleans and Vegas and, Gatlinburg and all these things where I had to speak at. And I'm like, okay, like, what do I do now? Because like, I got here, and I did what I could to be that smartest person in the room at that time, to advance my career as much as I can. But when you're in front of everybody and all these people, what are you going to do when they ask you those questions?
Yeah.
And guess what? When that happens, you're scared to death.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't bullshit my way out of this one.
Yeah. I think that's going on with me, like, right now, just being a full-time. And when you have it as a side hustle and you're doing it, you always have the security of having a paycheck coming every 2 weeks. And like, oh, yeah, well, I'll edit, I'll do this. But now it's like, okay, I'm full-time. So the days that I'm not shooting, what am I doing? I'm consuming content. I am trying to figure out how to get better. I'm editing. I'm creating the next reel. I'm scheduling. I'm doing this. I'm doing taxes. I'm doing all my QuickBooks. I'm making sure my second shooters are paid. Like, it goes down the line. And it's like, if I don't do that, then it's like, well, you can't bullshit because there's no money coming in, So it's just like, so right now I am really finding I don't know how to even explain it. Like, I wouldn't even say it's like a good mold, or because I still don't know, because I'm so young into the full-time aspect of it and stuff. But, as even just as a business owner, or just even as anybody that's trying to make it, like, I know my mentality and I really know what I want to do to be successful. And, like, people has said that multiple times. They're like, oh no, but you are successful. It's like, in my mindset, from where I'm from, I do not feel like I'm successful. I want to be established. And it's kind of weird. It's like, my dad, for instance, like, in my mindset, he is successful because he could talk to anybody, and he has an honor with people that, like, he doesn't even have to pay them the day of. They were like, no, we know that you're good. Like, he's trustworthy and stuff. Yeah. In my mindset, that's success, that he has established his word and his honor to people. and from our, small town, it might not take a lot, but like I saw that guy literally get on the phone and get a bank loan. And it's like, that's kind of unheard of when you actually have to go in and sign paper, and they're like, no, they'd be like, no, Jimmy, we know you're good for it. You just come in, we'll get it, because they know he just had that type of honor about him and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, to me, I'm looking at that, I was like, oh, that's success. Like,
Well, and that's also a lot to do with like the small town.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, if somebody, for example, even somebody that comes from, I sold a piece of property to a guy from New York, and he was like, I have cash, but why would I tie it up if I can leverage, the property for whatever? And I'm like, listen, Brad is your man. Like, I'm going to give you, like, he's like, yeah, but these local banks, they're not going to treat me as if my bank would. And I'm like, they'll surprise you. So, I give him that number, and he, they go into the bank, and Brad's like, listen, Derek sent you, I'll take care of you. And it's the same thing. But on the other hand, let's say I try to come over here in this area, or I try to go to New York and get a loan, and I just walk in like, hey, listen, I just need you to trust me. Here's this, blah, blah, blah. Guess what they're going to do? They're like, I am no way, shape, or form going to take a chance on your ass for nothing.
Yeah. I think that's where we get we get spoiled, and we don't take advantage of it as much, because those are the little qualities that I really just don't want to. I mean, it happens now. It's like I'll go out of state for like either a shoot or something, and just like saying hello to someone, I'm just like, what? And people don't say hi to you guys? Like, or just saying thank you, or holding the door, these little things that we do every single day that we're just like, so that's the part I'm just like, yeah, I'm glad I have that part that's in me and stuff, that's for sure. But, I mean, I'm going up to Delaware tomorrow. I'm doing a family shoot up there that I'm flying to and coming back. And they are, like, up in northeast. The people's nice, but you have to, like, warm up to them, And I'm just like,
yeah.
So I already know, like, in my mindset, I already know, like, the conversations I'm going to have and stuff like that, even before I have them now. And it's, like, just traveling and just, like, going to different places, like, we was so back into the woods in the sense that, like, we didn't, like, a trip to Parkersburg, which is, an hour away from us, that was the big city. That was something new.
That was your cool 1 year trip that you get to go once a year, or even Spencer.
Yeah.
I
mean, I didn't go to Charleston, I don't think, until I was like 17 or 18, and that's because the school took us too.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. And most of the time, any of the traveling we did outside of Parkersburg, Spencer, Glenville was because of school or something that we, luckily academically, on some of the trips, like, we got to go on because we did well on any of our studies or whatever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't hard in that school. No. It was just like one of those things. But we, you saying that you get to go to Delaware, like, that makes me proud.
Yeah.
Because that feeling that you have of, like, dude, somebody wants me to come do something, and I'm flying, or even, drive. But the flying was the big thing, dude. Whenever I found out, like, oh, hey, we're going to have you for this speaking engagement or whatever, we need you in Vegas on.
It's so weird.
And you're just like, I freaking made it.
Yeah.
Dude. But it's not really like you're still in the low stepping stones of your career, but you feel like, holy crap, I'm a rock star now.
Yeah. And all 3 times that I'll be flying is all for photography too. The first time was to Hawaii, and that was my first destination wedding. And it was just, I mean, when we came back, I told Ken, I was like, I just flew to Hawaii for, like, photography, somebody hired me to do that. And the second time, I did an engagement shoot up in Maine, and I flew up to Boston and the same thing. And I told her, I was like, I think I want to go full time, because, like, I can't just I can't be flying to places and, like, just be a side hustle, like, I think this is, so there's, like, these little parts that you're just like, I mean, it could be tomorrow that somebody books me for, like, a Colorado wedding or something like that, or something. I'm just like, yep, if I'm open, I'm there, and now there's no, like, question about it. It's just like, nope, that's what I do. And so, and I've had a couple of, like, travel, like, photographers and stuff, and we've talked even about that, just the feeling of success. And they was just like, yeah, like traveling to different states is not a thing, but now if they travel to a country, they feel like they've made it. And I was like, that is so far out of my reach of like, I'm just like, yeah, I don't even have a passport, so I don't even know like.
But until you put it out there, you like it feels unfathomable. But when it happens, you're just like, oh, like this was meant to happen.
Yeah, that's what like when P. Shep was when Parker was on his episode, and he was talking about traveling 15 different places and stuff like 15 different countries, and I was like, dude, I don't even know like where would I begin, and all this stuff. But I will have to say though, if he's listening to this episode, our thoughts are definitely out for him, because he's had a crazy 48 hours. He's stuck in Iceland right now.
Oh, wow.
Delta lost all of his luggage. He has just his camera gear, and that's it. But he had to buy like a whole new outfit, and it was cold up there, so you have to get a winter coat. You have to do this. It's like he dropped like $500 just on that and stuff. And I saw his story, and Delta's Delta, but at the same time, this last week we had that huge like there's flights
Microsoft
being
shut down and stuff. Yeah.
So I saw a lot of people in my stories that was traveling for content and stuff, and a lot of people was having issues. But he even talked about it on the pod about this whole trip, and I mean they've planned like 2 years ago and stuff. They've been planning this, so it's just like I don't know. I hope Delta does something, but they most likely probably won't. But he has an AirTag. He literally knows where his stuff is, and they just won't. I don't know, but sucks though, because like he could have been getting some of the best content.
And ultimately, that shuts down like his income. And when you do this stuff full time, but like traveling out of state, like you said in that podcast, how you were like, I might as well have been traveling out of country, because like even going to another state, it's just like that is what really is kind of like, okay, doing the stuff local was step one. Yeah. Then I get out of state for something, and then it just keeps like it goes progressively, or it gets progressively more and more and more after you get off of that initial step. Yeah, like it takes a while to get there, but once the snowball gets halfway down the hill, like it's this big.
I've done more weddings in Kentucky, I think, this year than I've done in West Virginia. So that was I'm even though they're literally right across the border. I tell my mom that too. I was like, oh yeah, I got a wedding in Kentucky. And she's like, oh yeah, and I was like, but it's like 2 miles across the border, but it's still Kentucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, it is.
But now is kind of cool because I got a senior shoot in a couple of weeks. I shot her sister that was at Marshall, but they live in Paintsville, which is about 30 minutes in, so I know that's going to give me exposure in that area. And I told my wife, Ken, I told her, I was like, that's going to expose me to a whole different, and I don't like to do senior photos as much, but it's like, since I shot her sister, I already know, I know the family, I already know how it's just different. But if it's just a random person that was in Kentucky that hit me up, I'd be like, what the heck's going on? Like, how'd you find me type deal. Yeah. And that's how I want to work with like a lot of my clients, is that I want to make sure that they have a good experience. That way they're just like, oh yeah, you can do this. I'm be like, oh yeah, like we already know each other's vibe and stuff. I like meeting new people, but it makes me feel better if they already know and they've done like research and understand like who I am. Like, it's just the same thing as, you go in and you're talking to like a realtor. Like, I want somebody that's going to be like, and that's the reason why, like, I told Ken, I was like, well, Derek's definitely our guy, like, whatever we do and stuff. Because, like, I know for one is that there's so much trust in knowing that, okay, well, he's from back home. He understands. He knows what he's going to fight for us. He's going to figure it out for us, and things like that. It's just like, if I got somebody down here, I wouldn't even know. I would go to Google and just type in realtors in my area. I don't know the process of it,
and end up with a bad situation like a lot of people have.
Very possible. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit, about being a realtor and being like just in that space, but kind of dive into about how photography, ultimately like showing the properties and showing locations and stuff, that's majority of the time of the process now, because of the fact that people want to see where they want, like, envision themselves living at and stuff. So just kind of like dive into that and see how that this kind of goes into your workflow and stuff.
So essentially, not every day is glamorous. Mm-hmm. So not everything you can put on social media. So, or in general, your websites, you know, the MLS, wherever you post your photos for the property. Where we live, it's not so much trying to showcase. In a sense, it is showcasing the home or the property or whatever, mm-hmm. but it's more of a opportunity to show what you have there. Mm-hmm. Everyone uses like, this is what we're lacking, or it's like, or they dress it up as, how are we going to talk them into coming here because there's nothing here for them. Mm-hmm. When in reality, that's the beauty of it. So when I'm taking photos of these things, like I first started out, like I bought all this really expensive equipment, you know, the fisheye lenses, because, you know, in the bathroom's a 5x5 bathroom, you know,
right.
half bath. How are you taking a picture of that? You know what I mean? Half of the photos of the door, the other parts of the mirror you're trying to keep out of, because you don't want it, you know, you don't want to look like an idiot in the, you know, in the shot. So I started out with like, okay, $6,000 camera, gear, all the stuff that I could use. In reality, it was, you know, I used it for work, but then that's where I kind of found my love for like actually taking photos and like how to make the camera work and do these things. I had a love for it before, but I never had the money to spend on this equipment. And while equipment, you know, they say that the best thing is what you have to show the story, and the story is the most important part. It is. But if you're taking it on a, you know, a Sony Cyber shot and it's blown out looking like you just took it on a land camera, it's just not there. So I ended up, I'm like, okay, all the agents in Charleston or Morgantown, like they're doing like, welcome to 123 Easy Street, you know, come on in. And like, they're showing all this stuff. I'm like, if I do that where I live, you know, first of all, the owner's going to look at me like I have something terribly wrong with me. But then they're also going to be like, I don't want all this stuff showcased like that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, not all the homes are like, some of this is airship situations where they've never seen the home. It's been sitting empty for 15 years. They've been paying taxes on it. So is the home worth showcasing?
Right.
You know, but so I switched everything up. I mostly take the photos now, still use a mix of all my equipment, but I use a more honest approach. I show them, you know, all the things that they need to, and everything to help them make the best decision for them to purchase that. If I go out there and I shoot them all like they're glamour shots, what happens is they get here and they're like, where's the house that you took a picture of?
Yeah.
Because real estate agents are notorious for making everything over glamored, and then when they get them there, it's kind of like you pulled the rug out from underneath them, and they're like, this isn't what I seen.
Real estate's not the only one. Airbnb is very notorious
Absolutely.
about that, because I've done it 2 or 3 times where I book an Airbnb and you get there and you're like, well, this place is small as hell. Like, how is this supposed to hold 8 people? You know, like I booked an Airbnb up in Columbus a couple years ago, and it was the gaming org that we had and stuff. We was going to do a meetup up there, and there was like 12 of us. Well, we got there and we was like, somebody like there's gonna be like a lot of people sitting on the floor, so that a couple of them had to end up getting a hotel because there's just no room. But you look at the online, you're like, oh, this place is massive. Like, this would be just fine. So yeah, that's where I think that was a huge like learning experience for me, knowing that, okay, this place is good. I look at the reviews now. I kind of like dive a little bit deeper into it, but I know exactly what you're talking about and stuff.
Yeah. So like for this weekend, this is a perfect example. I almost did a funny video just as a real estate agent, like rating Airbnbs, and I still want to do this. Like, I have all these ideas, but then I'm like, I look at myself on the first shot and I'm like, yeah, you were definitely made for the audio version of whatever you're going to make. So I ended up like this weekend, for example, the only thing that we could book, there was 2 spots. One was an Airbnb, and then one was called the Billy Motel. And I looked up, like, I don't only, like, if I'm putting my kids in something, you know, I came from where I would, you know, it would probably have been better most of the places I lived to sleep outside. So for me, it's like, it doesn't really matter. But for my kids and my wife, like, they deserve the best. They're going to get it.
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking this up, my son was devastated because he was like, Dad, I told him, I'm like, son, we looked everywhere. This is a spontaneous like we normally do. There's nothing available to stay at. He comes downstairs. That kid sat up there and was looking through Airbnb on his phone. He's like, Dad, now this place, he's like, it's not the greatest, but I would be okay with it.
Yeah.
You know, this is a 9-year-old. And I'm like, let me look at it. So I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, well, it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. It's right in the valley in Davis. So I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so we book it, but online there wasn't like any huge expectations. There's a living room that shares a dining / kitchen, and then 2 bedrooms with a bathroom in the middle.
Yeah.
That's all we need, really. We're only sleeping here.
Yeah.
So I get in there. So part of that expectation is, and also myself, like when I look at these photos, they make it look over glamored. You know, you got the coffee cup hanging from the mug tree. You've got all of this picturesque stuff that you're just like, oh, that's a cool looking place.
Yeah.
I've seen right through that because the reviews say, hey, it's not the greatest, but like it lets you do what you want to do in the area. So we booked this thing. It's like $250, cleaning fees, all that stuff. And we get there. The code worked for the door. I was stoked about that because sometimes you get there and you're outside waiting.
Yeah.
We get in. I'm like, okay, it's just like you're in a small little apartment. But the idea came to me whenever I go in there. No, first my wife takes a shower that night, and I keep hearing like this noise, like it's like somebody stepping on styrofoam, but not like regular styrofoam, but like that florist green stuff that scrunches up and like never comes back up. And I'm like, that's the weirdest noise. She comes out and I'm just like, did you hear that? She was like, yeah, I thought we were going to go through the actual bathtub. And I'm like, what was that? And she was like, I don't know, but it's like the whole time you're in there, like the whole bathtub is like floating almost.
Yeah.
And it's like crunching under your feet, but not breaking, but it's like something weird. So I'm like, okay. So I go in there and I go take a shower. I'm like, it's really crunched for me. I'm like, just chalked it up to I'm fat or something. You know, I didn't know what was going on. Like maybe I fall through this, maybe I don't. I don't know. So I'm like, in theory, let me test. So I grab my son. I'm like stepping here, and it's like, and with my daughter, she's like 40 pounds or something, and it's crunching just as bad. I'm like, this is weird. I should do an episode of like, this is the Airbnb, and then here's the honest Airbnb. But I ultimately don't want to ruin anybody's, financial things or whatever. But it's cool now how, if I'm really curious about it, if I'm traveling a far ways away, I'm not only looking up like the Airbnb, I'm like, okay, this is cool. But I watch YouTube videos on almost everything. And if I catch like my weekend in Davis, if I catch in there like, oh, hey, this hotel was the best place for me to stay, even though they didn't even come out and say like this is a review of this place, but like I seen how good of a time they had, and I'm scrolling through this video, I'm like, oh, they're staying here at this hotel.
Yeah,
that's how I do it.
There's a couple things. Do you watch the Outdoor Boys on YouTube?
I don't think I've ever seen it. No,
they got like a couple million like subscribers, but they do trips out to Alaska and whatever. But it's a whole family, and he's really good about putting all the details of where they go, like all the different like places they eat, places they fish at, places, all that stuff. He posts all the links in it, and like I'll do a YouTube video, and I'm sitting there, I'm just like, dude, where did I even go? And I was trying to like think of it, but it's like if you hone in on that and stuff, like it's so helpful for somebody that's just looking at something more new. Most of the Airbnbs that I'm staying at now, I like getting like Airstreams or campers or something because I know how small and like, you know what I mean?
And
like,
the content is there too. It's different.
It's just good. Ken and I, we just booked a trip down to Wilmington, North Carolina, and we're gonna be staying in Airstream for like 5 days, I think, something like that. And she sent it to me, and I instantly booked it because I was like, oh, yeah, Airstream. I swiped twice, and I was like, yeah, this is good. And she's like, what do you mean you booked it? I was like, you sent it to me. Mm-hmm. Did you not look at, like, she's like, well, I need your approval. I was like, no, it's fine. It's
My
just
approval
good.
was I just
booked it. Yeah, that was it. But when I went up to Maine, I stayed in a little camper too, and that thing was just, and that's like when I went to Seneca and we stayed at, it was a tree house, and it was all solar powered. Like, I'd rather stay at like kind of like unique things like that, because one, if it is super unique, they're going to put time into like making it like somewhat nice. That treehouse up there, I mean, I would have bought that thing as a house to live in. It was so nice. It was just like, it was just sturdy. There was no problem. Everything was eco-friendly. The bathroom was eco-friendly. They had the water for like the sink was like a rain runoff, so like it was all like, but it was all like filtered twice. I mean, it was just like they knew what they was doing when they was setting it up and stuff too. And when you're doing like those quick trips like that, you don't have to worry about a single thing. You know, you're just in and out and stuff. But so Airbnbs is like that. And that's the thing, like looking at just houses on like Zillow and just like other like things, like, you know, when we're searching for houses, I'm looking at like some of those things that there's like potential in things, but also is like kind of like move-in ready to like just go in and stuff. And then I look at land a lot too. Like, I don't think Ken understands some of the like reason why property would be so high if it's a small house. I'd tell her, well, you got 20 acres of land with that too. You know what I mean? Like but if she's like, oh, well, this one's good. It's only 80,000. I was like, yeah, but you don't even have a yard. You know, like I want to have a little bit of land because if something needs to happen and you can like start whittling off and be like, yeah, maybe sell an acre or two. You know,
and also how you grew up too. I think a lot of it's too like you could go outside and everything you see is yours.
I just
like where we were.
Yeah, like I don't mind where we live because we live on the East End now, and it is all of our neighbors we got really lucky. There's a lot of foot traffic, and that's the only thing. But we trust all of our neighbors. Like if we have a package or something, they'll pick it up and text us, and vice versa. And there's little things like that. The guy right beside us, his name is Terry. He's been in there since the early 80s and just lived in this apartment. He has this mullet and wears these jeans, like it's not jorts because they're cut off and and he feeds the alley cats like Tudor's biscuits. Like, the dude's crazy. And
that's the best though.
Yeah, I know. He'll be like, how you all doing? I was like, pretty good. And he'll grow cucumbers in the bag. And he's like, y'all want any cucumbers? I was like, Kim would be like, yeah, we'll take a couple. And I was like, this is insane.
Dude, he sounds like the perfect Theo Vaughn guest.
Yes. Honestly,
he might be Theo Vaughn.
Yeah. It's just Theo vacations up here probably. I can see it.
Yeah, but also like in and I want to actually get into that because I have a goal. Real estate is where I make my money, and I really am passionate about helping people, but I have a goal much bigger than ever selling homes and this is just like what I love to do, and I want to get into that in a little bit, but the creative side around real estate can be so much. Like, there's a lot of things that I've innovated and done in real estate in Calhoun County that there are agents not even doing in Los Angeles.
Right.
Like, there's for example, when I sell land, I wanted to find a way, like, how the heck am I, when you go to show property, let's say I sold a 600 acre parcel one time, 6 something, and I'm on this, 600 acres is a lot of land. Mm-hmm. And how do you, as a buyer, how do you make that commitment to, first of all, fly into Charleston, drive an hour and a half to get to the property, and then spend however many hours it takes looking through this land to even see half of it, to drive all the way back and fly back out. So you've now spent, if you fly into Charleston from anywhere, mm-hmm. unless it's DC, you're spending money. Mm-hmm. Like, I love that we have this airport here, but it costs a lot of money to fly in and out
Yeah,
of.
you always got to
to
do like a
different-
connecting flight, and that's what hurts us. And stuff,
Yeah,
so.
and so these people come in. I'm like, how can I make that easier for them and less expensive? So the drone is a huge part of me being able to show the land.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, there's another step. All of these houses that all of these agents are using around the world, all of these technologies that you're using around the world are to show the house and these virtual tours. How can I do that for land?
Mm-hmm.
And just because I'm not like I said, and like you've said, like I've bullshit my way through too much. So like when I sit down and I'm spending a lot of money on my gear, like I want to learn it. If I use it every day, like I have to learn like shortcuts. So in my drone, I found out like, hey, I can take these 360 photos.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what if I can hack essentially the virtual tour software to where I can add these in here? I know it's not a door that you're walking through, but what if I can make that look like I'm walking around the land? I'm zipping to a new area.
Right.
So I'm looking up, nobody has anything on this. And I'm like, crap, this is like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
4 years ago, almost 5 years ago. So I ended up finding a company that just basically was that. It was a software for you to upload 360 photos to show things.
Yeah.
And I went out and I shot this property, but everywhere that I took like a really nice photo, I would do a 360 photo, and then I would go back, and wherever I wanted my main point of that photo, I would take that shot, then take it in 360, and then when I got home, I would put it into the software. That's my first one. So when you load into it, boom, it's that shot that I want. You can click and drag, you can swipe around, and you can see all of this. And I put my first one together, and I'm sure there's other people that have done this. It's just not broadcasted.
Right.
I didn't create this.
Yeah.
And it was a farm, which it was all of my farms in Calhoun I do this with. But I took this photo. This farm had been listed with several other agents. They went all the way down to $300 and some $1,000. They couldn't get it sold. And I went out there, pulled out all the stops, took the photos, patched them together, but I knew kind of where I was at on the farm when I took the next one. Mm-hmm. So when I'd look at that 360 photo, I'm like, okay, I was here. So if I was looking at the house, I knew where the other one was going to be. I'd put a little hot spot there, and they could click and go around the entire farm. And a couple came in from, I was thinking it was like Kansas or something, and they called me and they're like, hey, I want to put an offer on this property. I'm like, I don't do those. I need you to come look. They're like, Derek, I've seen everything in the house, and I've seen the land. That's the most important part. I could care less about that house. I don't need nothing. We'll give you $500,000 cash for this farm.
Right.
Now, granted, it was because of that technology that I spend, a few $100s a year, a couple $1,000 investment on the equipment that set me apart from them buying a farm in, they were looking in Kentucky. They were looking in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. They just happened to see mine because of a Facebook post that had a link that said 360 virtual farm tour. And dude, it sold that.
And did Facebook do that automatically? It recognized it, or
no. So the way I set all my posts up, I have like more photos and information, and then 360 farm tour,
Gotcha.
and I you emoji the crap out of everything so people see it. And dude, it literally made me thousands of dollars, and they the sellers were afraid to pay a 6% commission. So the other agent took the listing, however many people before, 2% and 3%, and couldn't sell it because guess what? Because they're only getting paid that small amount, they decided they weren't going to do the work. I held out, they interviewed me, and I didn't get it either time. Mm-hmm. When I was the rightful person to sell this, they knew it. So that third time, whenever they called me out, they're like, Derek, we're paying it. We know that it's going to work. And they saved themselves over $200,000 that I got them more than what they had lowered
Right.
their standards to, and it was because of photography. And it was just like it was a way for me to be creative then. So then all of my properties, all that land and stuff that was so hard to sell, then it wasn't hard
Yeah.
to sell.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's such a I was trying to think too when I was at tourism. I forget what the company was called, but they also do. Their company also does data for the electric cars for like Tesla and things like that, and they was giving us data of like how the charging stations was in the state parks and stuff. But they also handled a lot of data on like topography of like the state parks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they was showing us that, and how they was mapping all that was they would go through the state parks, and essentially their company would map it out completely and tell you exactly where the hotspots and where everybody, based on people's pings of their cell phones, where they're at in the park. So if there's places in the park that's never been touched, is that a place that you create a new trail and things like that?
That's
So
interesting.
it was the nerd side of me was like, oh yeah, we need to investigate it. But higher ups, nothing against them. It was when I worked there, a lot of the decisions they made wasn't. I even though they said no at the time, I agreed should be a no because it's so fast paced, and I have crazy respect for the people at the Department of Tourism. They are cranking out content. They have stuff planned so far in advance, and people that have never stepped foot in there, they don't truly understand what's going through in that office. But I mean, we had stuff that was in the works 2 years beforehand and stuff. And so when somebody would say no, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. Like something else is going to come or something else is going to benefit. But I had to sit on those calls because I was the data research coordinator at that time, and it was really interesting because I was just like, man, this would be very helpful, and not to the Black Waters or the pipe stems, but like your Cedar Creeks and your, just small type, maybe even Bluefield, I would even call them. But these type of state parks that are small, they only have like one point of interest or no points of interest. Like how would you make them more marketable in a sense and stuff? And it was all going to start, from drone footage of just tracking it. And I was just thinking, so then you're sitting there, you're thinking, man, this would be good for real estate. This would be good for this. It'd be good for, DNR and, tracking different things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity just in drones. I think a lot of people, they see a drone, they're just like, oh, okay, well, somebody's spying on somebody, or they're just taking a photo, which I had incidents at back home. I did a couple drone photos when I was just starting out with Phantom. This has been over probably 10 years ago now. I did them at the football game, and I had permission from the board. I had permission from the principal. It was Chas at that point. She was like, yeah. The refs were cool. I talked to them beforehand. They said, just don't fly it like, over the players, like very close or whatever.
Yeah.
And I flew. I got a great sunset photo because if anyone knows Calhoun, the football field has the best sunset, I feel like, ever and stuff. And I got that photo, and I was landing. I was there in the parking lot, and I had somebody was coming down, and I couldn't even make out what they was talking about, and they was yelling. And then I realized they was yelling at me, and I was like, well, yeah, how you doing and stuff. And they was like, you shouldn't be flying. You're dangerous. And I was like, I was 100 feet above your head. I've already got all this. It's already been logged. And I just let her talk and stuff. And she was like, you don't have no idea what you're doing. I was like, okay, ma'am, and stuff. But I was like, who is this woman that's just like so? And I get it too, because some people was just not prepared. But I was like, I wasn't doing any. I was with that Phantom, so you can't even go like more than like 10 miles an hour on that thing anyway.
Sure.
So you're just like, but they're so kind of like scared of the fact that they've never seen one. Because that was another thing too. Is like back home we put the drone up, you get like kids would come out from nowhere. And you're like, where the hell do these 20 kids?
There's no
come
opportunity for them, so they
from?
don't know.
Yeah, and they just don't. It's something so new, and but we would get photos and stuff like that, and I'm just thinking to myself, I was like, this is an image that Calhoun's never seen, and instead of embracing it, you want to immediately
It's a lot
fight,
of fight and
you know,
pushback
and I'm
on
just
any
like,
of that.
okay, well, y'all can have that and stuff. But there's a lot of places that I would like to shoot, and I want to get more into like just high quality like prints for like, because a couple years ago they asked me to do some for the high school, and I was just like, I never really agreed on it because of the fact that I just didn't want to have those conversations on Facebook where parents would be like just not knowing, you know. And I was like, because they wanted one over by where the state road and stuff. They wanted one where the sun setting with the whole entire school. And I was like, oh, that'd be really beautiful and stuff as a giant panorama of a drone shot. And I was like, but I ultimately said no to it because I didn't want to post it and people just with that mentality, you know. And they was very understanding about it and stuff too. But there's just those little things right there that can just ruin your whole entire creative mindset.
Yeah.
And luckily down here in some of the places I use the drone now, it's starting to get better because I don't like lollygag anymore. I put that thing up in there, I take it right down. Like I know what I'm going to get because I don't want to draw more attention to it too.
And the more time you've used it, it's just like your camera.
Yeah.
Like you can pull it out and you're like, okay, I already know what I need to stop down to. And you're just like, okay, I know this one shot, maybe two. And you're like, okay, I have it dialed in. I know where I'm at.
That's with, on Parker's episode when he does FPV, it's a lot different. Now, you know, those get up to like, you know, 40, 50 miles per hour easy. You know, that's what they start on. And that's a whole different genre of drones. So like, but people's just not educated on the fact of the different ones too. And then there's some that's like actual real estate drones that measures and surveys and stuff. And they're big old boys. You might as well be using a helicopter.
You could almost hold on to them and take off with them. Yeah, they're crazy.
They map and they survey and they can go miles and I mean, I don't know if anybody has those, but I know Glenville, a couple of those professors, like even Doyle, Hupp and stuff, he was telling me about them and stuff. And I'm just like, and they're, just because I know photography and drone, it doesn't matter. Like that's a whole different controller, you know, it's a whole different setup. So it's just like
I flew one in, I think it was called GIS, it was, or Equip, at Equip, and I may go to it again this year. It's mostly about like outdoor lawn care, like landscaping and whatever. It's an equipment expo, but it's in Louisville. And when I went there, of course I was attracted to the tech side of it, and I flew not even the big version. Like I flew the smaller one that it still takes you like 30 minutes to, you know, put all the legs on and get everything set up, the motors, you know, everything in place. And just lifting it off the ground and moving it over and putting it down in a spot was totally different than what we do. You know, I can unfold a couple legs, pull a cap off, throw an ND on it, maybe plug my stuff in it, I'm good to go, and I know where I'm at. I'm calibrated, I'm good. But that's a whole other world. Like I was probably like those kids in Calhoun when I got to that station, because I'm just like, like that's totally. He told me that like the LiDAR sensors, you can heat map, you can do topography, you can survey with these little pucks everywhere. It's just like,
well, I know in Texas and there's actual drone operators, like the drone businesses that, like, if you shoot a deer, you can hire them to track it for you.
Yeah.
And that's all they do. And I just know that because of TikTok. And I see that on TikTok. I'm just like, what the heck? And so their laws are a little bit more open, but it's like here I know you can't use a drone to hunt deer. You can only use it to track deer. Yeah. So it's like, which should
good
be
luck when luckily you're not hunting during peak summer. You would not see anything.
Yeah, but and then I have had so many people, especially from back home. I'll show them like clips or something, or they'll comment, be like, "Yo, man, I can use that to deer hunt with." And I was like, "Yeah, you could, but I don't." You know, it's like little things like that just cracks me up all the time. But it's I think is so interesting. I think with photography, videography, just like how in the last 10 years technology has advanced so much, and the fact that, you know, it's exciting. Some people think it's scary, but it's like, to me, I'm just like, no, it's exciting. I try to like think about people, for one, is always going to take a tool and do bad things with it regardless, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, you don't think of the negatives. Just let's try to think of the positive and move from there. And it's like, yeah, this could help somebody. This could, like, you know, like we could have drones in 5 years from now that don't even fold out. They can literally just look like your phone and
create a masterpiece with it.
yeah, and just you just throw it in the air and it can go or something. You know, like there's so many little things. I mean, that happens that we just don't know. And the cameras are getting better. The Mavic 3 Sena is incredible. It's a $3,000 drone, commercial drone that anybody can buy it. And when I was at Glenville, we bought it, and the zoom level on it is absolutely insane. There's three different ones. You got the 1, you got the 3, and then you got the 7 times. And the 7 times zoom on it, I mean, you barely lose any quality. You can be like hundreds of yards away, zoom right in on somebody, and which, I mean, it just, that part is kind of scary because they don't even know they're being watched in a sense.
True.
But when you look at the different possibilities of like using it to like find a missing person or like find, you know, just, you know, there's a lot of people have used drones to find like what's that, Avengers with a Purpose on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I love that.
You know, and they're always finding missing people that has went off into like a river and stuff. You know, they'll use sonar in their drones and do it and stuff. And they talk about photography and cameras all the time on their channel, how if they didn't have these tools, they would never be able to solve a lot of these cold cases and stuff. So it's just very interesting to me that it's just I don't know. It's just one of those things that you want to like always tinker with, and I know that like when I'm 80, I think, you know, like my love for photography is going to continue because I want to see and learn and like, you know what I mean. So like,
can you imagine what it looks like, you know, in 50 years for you? Like, I think of right now how, and you had said in one of your podcasts how like the drone you thought was super cool, you know, the Phantom, you're like, you're hitting 720p, right?
Yeah.
And now we're, you know, some cameras are 8K, you know, there's different things. We look at it that way, and we thought back then like it doesn't get any better than this.
Yeah.
But then we get to what we have now, and we're like, where can it even go from here?
I know.
Like how, like what, other than like how we actually see things.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I could think of that would be an upgrade of like how we actually see things is how it captures it, how we think about it in our minds.
Yeah.
Like there's really no way in my mind that it goes up from here. Now, in 20 years, I'm like, we were so naive. Like we had no idea what it was going to actually be because we're not thinking of it yet.
No, we're so captivated about the now and stuff, and I think that's just being humans in general. Is like we do that. Like we focus a lot on the past and we focus on the now, and we never think about tomorrow. Like we in a way, like I feel like humans are so we're like we're babies of the universe, just going around, not having no care at all. You know what I mean? And it's just, we bump into things and we know that it's going to be all right. But in reality, we don't know if tomorrow is going to be all right. You know what I mean? And stuff.
Yeah.
But we want to focus all on the past, and we all want to dwell. And I saw like a clip and stuff where they was talking about, you know, we spend like a third of our life thinking about what happened yesterday. You know, and I'm just like, gee whiz, like, so, and I mean, it goes straight into like technology and stuff too. Is like, I'm sure people that are, you know, 80 now, whenever they saw their first camera, you know, that it had to be a massive like thing. I do know back in like the 1800s, whenever they was getting like their photo taken, that was like the big thing you do that year or that month or whatever. Like and it was a family thing. When you get your photo taken, it's not just like, I mean, how many outlaw stories have you heard? It's like when they would rob a bank, they would go get their photo taken. Like that was like the thing to do.
Yeah.
Big
and now those
accomplishment.
photos are worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Found in yard sales. Did you see that?
The Jesse James one, yeah.
It's just crazy.
That's another thing too, is just like the history of photography. And I feel like you and I, we've always had those late night conversations about, because I feel like our love for like history is about the same and stuff too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I love film photography, but I don't want to even begin on it because of the fact that I don't know anything about it. So it's just I don't know. Like I would rather like just watch other people kind of do it and then just be amazed on as an outsider looking in type deal. But yeah, there's so many. We're talking about kind of history, and this might be good too for like. I think you might have a good insight on this. I've had a couple people ask me about, well, if anyone's watching or listening and stuff, they know in the last like couple weeks this has been a crazy time for our whole entire nation and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's 3 images right now that went viral, and that was on the assassination attempt on former President Trump at the rally.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some of the history because I was debating on doing a YouTube video on it, and Ken and I talked, and we were trying to figure out. I want to talk on it, but I also don't want to be political in any sense and stuff.
Same.
I try to be like open-minded, and I started looking at like all those comments about these photographers. Now the guy that took that is Doug Mills. He's an AP Associated Press photographer. He's been doing this for like 35, 40 years. He's a very reliable person to have a camera. It's not your amateur out there and stuff.
Sure.
And one of the photos that I'm talking specifically about is the one that he catches the bullet flying through the air. Now it's 1/8,000th of a second. A lot of people, they're looking at it and they're saying, well, why is he shooting this? Well, he shot it with a Canon, and that Canon probably goes up to 32,000th or even 64,000th of a second. 1/8,000th in midday is not uncommon at all, and it was a very bright day. I mean, super hot day in July.
He's probably just pulling and letting it snap.
That's what my assumption is, because a lot of people don't understand too. If you are working for Associated Press, he's most likely also working with Getty Images, and Getty Images will. I mean, they pay for images. I mean, that's their whole entire thing.
So other news outlets can use them.
Yes.
For...
Yeah. And he, I would say, is just clicking to get what he's getting just to get, that and stuff.
There's no conspiracy behind it.
I don't think there is. I think he was at the right place, right time.
You couldn't time that anyway.
I know. I don't think you could and stuff.
You know how hard it is to time things in photography. Just snapping in general, it's kind of luck of the draw sometimes.
That's why, And the other 2 images, there was another one where Trump was like bleeding, and he the sun was peeking through, very dramatic. And then the other one was, of course, the fight one where he has his hand up in the air and the American flag is behind. Those 3 images will be in our history books for the rest of our lives and stuff. And I think that's what's a really cool thing to talk about, is the fact that, in our lifetime, our biggest nation event that ever occurred was 9/11.
Yeah.
And when we see images about that now, and there's a couple images, and when you guys are watching this video too, I'll try to put those on the screen to give the proper credit. But there's one with the black lady that's like walking through, and she's covered in dust and stuff. That one, I believe, I might be wrong on this. I'm not for sure, but I'm pretty sure that one won. The photographer that did it won like a Pulitzer Prize for that one. And so you got like. There's so many things that goes into getting like that shot, but like journalism photography is a whole different thing. You have to incite more raw emotion. It's not like somebody should stand there and be like, okay, just lift your arm up.
It's candid.
It's very candid. It's very raw. It's very. I think people don't want to believe the fact that he got it because they still don't want to believe that it happened.
Sure.
And then it's just like
none of us want to believe that any of that happened. No one should go through that.
No. And but it's that's the only thing that happened, and that's what also like kind of confirmed that I feel like I'm in the right profession too, because that happened, and that was the first thing that I was analyzing was the photographs, and I was looking at the photographers, and I was doing that, and I was just trying to see, and But it's like, when 9/11 happened, all those photographs, I mean, I would say like 95% of the ones that were taken was actually taken by, tourists or innocent bystanders and stuff that was just like, they didn't know what was going on and stuff. But it's like, you get these photographers that are, in the military that's documenting wars or documenting, if you look up right now, there's a USA Today had a top 20 most historical influential photos of all time, and like 15 of them are all war related.
Yeah.
And what's sad about it is like our world thrives on seeing that pain and that raw and stuff. And then, I mean, there's the image with the guy with the groceries in front of the tank is a big one. There's the monk that was on fire. That was I believe in Thailand. There's one that was shot with a 35 millimeter camera, which was on film. It was an execution of a Saigon prisoner, and 35 millimeter, and the way they framed it, it had to be no closer than like here to this camera. So when you think about that photographer as a journalist, because that photographer covered that whole entire thing, and then there's a whole bunch of different war related laws where they can't kill media or anything like that. Seeing someone that close literally get executed, and the last thing that person saw was
someone taking a picture of them.
That's the type of just raw thing that you just like, you can't comprehend and stuff. And that's photojournalists, like, I think they are so incredible to our history, and just like there is so much more than just loading up film and taking a photo and just taking any photo. Half the time that they're taking them, they don't know what they're about to get. They don't know.
No.
And I would say the majority of them, they don't care whether or not their stuff is published. They're there to just tell the story and document.
Yeah, and I think so. I was going to tell you, like, I ultimately have a goal with creating things that I am passionate about. I'm more passionate about candid shots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. It's not that there's not a place for the wedding photos, and
right.
Because at some. And this is just me. Like, we didn't have really a photographer at our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that was because we wanted to focus on us. And we were poor. That also has some things to do with it. But the main thing for me is that all of my photos, I like them to look very good. I want them to look like there's a story there. But I also don't want to tell them, okay, right arm up just a little bit. I want it to capture it.
Yeah.
The entire moment the way it is. So, like for my photos, and I'll send you some if you want to shoot or just show a couple. The majority of them are my family,
mm-hmm.
and taking photos of them. And I see artistic expression and things in the photos. So I have a picture of my son. I had just brought like the picture tells the story, but it doesn't tell half of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you see this little boy and he's super excited. Like, he just opened up this laptop and he's looking at it. The screen, the brightness of the screen is on his face. Everything else is dark all around him. And he's just like shocked that he has this. It looks like there's something on the screen,
mm-hmm.
but in reality, it was a picture of my son, super excited because of the technology. It was an old laptop that they were throwing out at one of the companies I was working with
mm-hmm.
for. And I restored it, brought it home, and it was like one of those military ones that was in a hard case.
Yeah.
You open it up, it's like a briefcase. And he was excited. He was stoked about this thing. And I took this photo, and I don't like color images.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
And the major thing about liking black and white is I feel like the colors distract you from actually seeing the true story and what you're trying to focus on.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm not huge into landscape photography.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see very well. So with like if I take my glasses off, I can't see at all. Like, it's just like one of those things. And so when I take photos, I really like to focus on details. I don't care to have this huge, stopped out to a
You just want
15
to
or
hone it down to one thing.
to
that you
just
can
one
focus
thing.
on.
So like branding of things, like old, like I really like history, and like if you go to like an old gas station that's abandoned or something, and I look through the window and I see an old bag of chips or something that was left on the counter with dust on them, like those are weird things that I know nobody else cares about, but to me it's just like that's super cool,
Right.
and like those are the things I like to take photos of. So it's either a mix of like street and like not really journalism, but like I don't know, documentary style.
Yeah, like an editorial,
photography.
like documentary. Yeah, I could definitely see
that.
that.
And candid, like those are like the styles that I like. So my big passion is ultimately being behind the camera and just doing interviews of people that I find interesting. I don't care if they're millionaires. The majority of them wouldn't be.
Yeah.
What I really liked, like I am very curious when I go, for example, I was eating lunch down the road here, and the lady comes up to me to take my order, the waitress and whatever, and just very nice and whatever. I always just sit there and wonder, like, how is this profession? Like, what's the truth about it? The things that nobody else knows, that I can tell that story and, talk to them about it, ultimately without it ruining their career or whatever, no matter what it is in general. But asking those questions that no one else asks, maybe they don't ask because they don't care, but I do. And I know there's going to be some people out there that are just as weird as I am that are going to be curious about those things. And the only person that I can think of that does this and does it differently than I would do it. Have you ever heard of Soft White Underbelly?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I found him way before he found the Whitakers.
Yeah.
That's what his claim to fame was. Unfortunately, it was a bad image on West Virginia in the most part.
Well, I was going to say, so we had one blog post because that is, ironically enough, they live in a little town called Odd, West Virginia.
Yeah.
And Odd, West Virginia was in a blog post. That blog post had like 200,000 hits within 24 hours. And I was doing research and data, and that when you see 1,000, 200,000, or what the heck is going on? And he mentioned us in his YouTube video in the description, and then that was pinged when you Google. It was West Virginia tourism, and then soft white underbelly and stuff was it, the next thing. So we was just in the trending searches, and that had like 8 million views on it in like no time at all. So yeah, it was really, that's how I found his stuff, by like data on it. But yeah, sorry. You can,
no, and I love what he does.
Yeah.
And like the picture that he uses for his thumbnail, it's just a simple photo and it's of the person. And I don't know why I can't remember this photographer's name, but he is the one that made me really love candid photos. But it's this guy that does like, he'll photograph homeless people a lot.
Is it Lee Jeffries?
Lee Jeffries is the man, bro.
Dude.
And you may have been the one that turned me on to him. I'm not sure.
I've been following him for years.
But when I see like the photos of the hands and the like he kind of over strength, like he'll throw some.
It's like the clarity
filter
is on massive. They almost look like charcoal images every single time.
Absolutely.
And he did 2 or 3 different projects on Skid Row in LA, and if you really want, I would say like he, in my opinion, is not only one of the best, but like one of the world's best about showcasing black and white emotion for portraits. Like honestly, like his work is tremendous.
The pores on their face, but isn't he shooting a Hasselblad?
I don't
used to, at least.
I don't know. He hasn't been on my page in a long time, so I really don't know. I still follow him, but you know how the algorithms go and stuff. It's just like
next week it'll be something like
I do have one of his books though, and it's just it's just insane. But yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, so like when I seen his stuff, like I have this, and I write it down. Like every time I get a thought about what I want my project to actually look like, or when that may not take place till I'm 40 or 50 years old.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I do know is that when it happens, I can't just be focused on multiple things. It is that one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to focus on. So I either have to, do that later in my career whenever I have the money to where I can say, I'm not going to do this until until I can go full force, or B, I just make it work.
Right.
With what my situation is. And I'm not that type of person that can jump out of that comfort zone that quick. So I got to figure it out. But I don't know if I want to do it the exact style yet, but I want it to give them the freedom to tell their story. But I want to ask the perfect questions that I believe everyone wants to know about that specific subject.
Yeah. You're going to love this project that myself and Colt Townsend is working on. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'll talk about when we get off camera. But we're working on something that is sort of similar and is kind of big for that and stuff. And he's in southern West Virginia. And we just kind of you would like his mindset. Like his mindset is very much like mine as well. From a very small town, just him and his wife kind of do things, and same views, same everything.
Yeah.
And very creative and stuff. And we've had a lot of like late night Discord calls where we're just like, we're sitting there and we're just like, yeah, we need to just do that and stuff. But yeah, I'll tell you a little bit more about that off camera and stuff. Yeah. So, Derek, do you have like any advice, or you want to shout out any creators? This is kind of like towards the end of the conversation. I always try to kind of give this whole idea of this podcast is giving creators in West Virginia like another platform and stuff too. So like, is there anybody that you follow, or you just want to like make sure that they get their flowers in a sense, you know?
The majority of the inspiration that I get for photography or storytelling or art in general come from seeing people that have made it, or that I see that are on the right path, such as yourself, to getting what you want. Not really so much inspiration. Like most of the people that I follow and that I watch in general are very weird. Not the people, but like this, like I find myself down this rabbit hole of like, okay, I start out looking for, a new creator that does anything similar to what I do in Calhoun County. And it's like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, there's huge opportunity here, 'cause I know there's small places around, that do this. But I try to pull inspiration, from these different creators. There's Matt Day. I don't know if you know who that is. I think it's Matt Day Photo or something. He's from Chillicothe, Ohio.
Okay.
And in Chillicothe, it's I've been a few times. I've spoken to Matt. I've not like said, hey, I'm going to be coming through the area.
Right.
And I'm just kind of awkward like that. I really, if you wouldn't have said, hey, let's come over, I would have never been like, yeah, let's just do this. Just as awkward as I am. But I believe his daughter, I don't know if they put labels on it or whatever, so I don't really want to do that. But his daughter is super sweet, and his son, and he like documents their entire life. Mm-hmm. He's not really a photographer that, like, he started out being a photographer that you could hire to come out to your weddings or whatever, and he's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But he is a film photographer first. That's his passion. And what it taught me was photography is the medium in which you tell your story to the next generation. Mm-hmm. And when you for myself, it really put into perspective watching him that every day that I'm not taking photos of my kids or whatever, or my wife or myself, I just lost those memories.
Yeah.
Unless it's something, there's only normally two things that give you these hardcore memories of a situation, either pain or extreme pleasure. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two things, and that's the same way in life in general.
Yeah.
There's only two things that make you remember something, and it's pain or pleasure, and they usually have to be pretty extreme, or at least for my mind, because I forget everything that I've done, and in an hour I'll forget half the stuff we talked about. So for me, I take those photos now because I worked all the way through my son, and the majority of the early stages of my daughter's life. You know, she's 5, going to be 6 this year, and I forgot almost everything until I quit my job and dedicated myself to my family and my career in real estate. I forgot the majority of that. But what I do several times a year is I sit down and I look through terabytes and terabytes of all my photos and videos that I've captured that are all candid. And I don't tell them to like, hey, go over here and do this crazy thing. It's just like I snap it the way it is, so I remember it. So everything that I do now, I document it in some type of way, and that's what a lot of Matt's channel is. It's just document life, you know. And it taught me that if I don't use this as a medium to document from now on in my life, I'm going to forget the majority of it. And that channel is like he's on YouTube, and he's a lot of black and white, so maybe that's why I was drawn to him. But he's fantastic at.
Yeah, I'll have to check out his stuff for sure. I mean, and that's the thing with this podcast. I want to hit like as many West Virginia people as possible, but like there's a couple people in Dayton actually that I've already reached out that I would love to have on the podcast because I met them through a mutual friend, and they run a studio up there, and they're just killing it. They're just doing so great, and they just took a risk, and I would love to like pick their brain about like just being in a different area, different, like, because Dayton is not like any other city in West Virginia, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I mean, I'll definitely have to find his stuff. I mean, anything else you want to, like, anything else you got?
No, I was trying to think of course, on the spot, I'll not think about it, but at like 10 o'clock later, I'll be like, hey, I really should have said this about this person. No, I just, there's so much talent in Calhoun County that we didn't realize, or we don't. Like, I try to keep up with as many people that I can remember from school. Like I said, school was such a hard thing, and it is for a lot of young people growing up. You're very impressionable. So I didn't take it serious when I was in there, because it was just like, I graduated with 3.5, and I feel like I slept through almost all of 11th grade, and I didn't even go to school in 12th grade.
Yeah.
I had all my stuff done, and I went to the Career Center until noon, and then I worked from 12 to 7.
Yeah.
So like I didn't take any of that serious, and I should have. And I feel like I could have met so many more people that I could have kept track of that now are doing like incredible things. Like, we have some really good musicians that came from Calhoun County. Like, I try to follow Will Freed on some. He's incredible. Like John Richards, incredible. There's just so many cool people that are in an art type space that are really, whether they're broadcasting or not, whether it's wood making, music, photography, art.
I'll tell you one person that I would absolutely love to have from Calhoun to talk with, just because of the history of art and culture. I forget her name, but Ken knows who it is, and you know who it is, but she does the Heartwood in the Hills.
Jude Bender.
Jude, yeah.
You should. You should
it'd
make
be
it
amazing. I don't even know how to contact her though. To be honest, I don't.
You know, she's one of those old souls that like.
I know.
Maybe you get her on a phone call. I got a good connection.
Okay.
I got a good person that grew up in that space.
Talking art and just talking about like the growth of just like the process of things. I don't know. I think she is a person that I didn't know anything about growing up, and
I didn't either.
I look back and I was like, she real talk about culture and like Appalachian culture and just like I don't even know what I thought Heartwood in the Hills was. You know,
I think we got to do like I'm pretty sure in school didn't we get to go out there and like
I never
one
did.
time? Okay,
they
did
came to
once.
us. They would come to Pleasant Hill. And
I
then
went
they
there
would
one
do,
time.
Like, different things and stuff.
But it was like the best kept secret
Yeah.
that people from all around the world
Yeah.
would love to come and see. But
Yeah.
we just knew it as these people that dance with beautiful like
masks
colors and
and
masks
stuff
and stuff down Main Street once a year.
And when they did that, they was the most anticipated thing in the parade.
We
Every single
photographed
time.
that during
Yeah.
this, you know,
Yeah.
dude.
I do have a couple of those photographs I could show, but I think she would just be an interesting person in general. To, honestly, you could do a whole documentary on her life. Like it would just, it would just be beautiful and stuff. But I think about especially like history from where we're from and stuff like that is definitely a person. Mr. Bonar, just the fact
full of knowledge
of Calhoun, and you know, there's a lot of positive, but there's a lot of negative as well. And I think is just as a photographer, and it's like we've had a lot of these conversations of, you know, like that is still my home. Doesn't matter where I go in the world.
Same.
And stuff. And I want what's best for my home. I want to be able to give my knowledge back to my home, but I don't feel ready at all. And I don't know if that's because of the fact that I still wanted to, like I mentioned about like, you know, at the park and stuff, like I want to make sure I have everything correctly because I want to showcase it and stuff. It's like if I'm doing it for my home, I want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know.
When I feel like too, if I also feel like it doesn't matter, like you could be a billionaire, right? The approval from the world doesn't matter, but the approval from your roots, I feel like still overshadows. Like you could literally be the richest man in the world, and you're more afraid to let down the people that knew you and your entire life than you are afraid of disappointing 2 million people that follow you on, you know, Instagram.
I do that every single time I post. Every single time I post to Facebook, especially on Facebook.
Well, just so you know, that outsider from home that sees it couldn't be more proud. When I talk to people, Jim Morris included, dude, like it's always, it's, you know, every conversation of any art or anything that comes up, and he is in that conversation. It's just like, oh, you know, we've got amazing people. Q comes from here. Like we, you know, it's just when I see that stuff, I'm just like, it's only going to take him a little bit more time, and he's going to be that name that when you search and you're looking through that history of Calhoun County, like it's going to be in there on something. It's going to be there. I know it.
And that's crazy. That's very kind for.
So don't be too hard on yourself trying to post things from that, because man, you know the stuff that gets posted about home daily, like they could use some really good quality content that came from somebody that's from there. My stuff, like the little things I made, like I did a cool shot whenever I did Davis, and I was just going to do like a little story, like a little whatever out of it. I get in my head so much though when I go to post this stuff because it's home and I don't want, you know, because I see people. It's like weird too, you know. I run down to Foodland and they're just like, "Hey, I seen you on TikTok." And I'm like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, I know.
Like why? Like I don't want you to see that.
So I had a little moment when I was out there. I just recently shot a GTR out at Canal State Forest, and I talked to a person. I had my first official like YouTube influencer moment out there. car pulled up, and there was this mom with a whole bunch of her, like, I don't know, 12, 13-year-old girls and stuff. And I had my gimbal, and I had my camera on it. And she pulled up. She said, "What are you doing, shooting a movie?" And I said, "Nah, I'm just shooting some content for YouTube." "YouTube? Oh, you're a creator," she said, and stuff. And I was like, "Nah, I mean, I do photography, do this stuff." She's like, look 'em up. Look them up." So they sat there. They didn't even go yet. They looked me up and did, "Oh, okay," and stuff. And they all subscribed right there and stuff. That was a really cool, like, moment for me to, like, some random person was interested in just what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then they saw, and then they kind of like, "Oh, this guy is, like," I don't know. It was cool. It'd been cooler if they was already subscribed, but
Yeah.
and then it would have been like a whole different
Soon.
mindset. But no, I really do appreciate that, and I think that just that's always been a drive. I talk about that in the video that where my spark came from and the people that pushed me and stuff is like I also don't want to let those people down either. I want to tell a story. We've always had this conversation of like trying to tell a story about Calhoun. That was a little bit on some of that content that was on that hard drive that was stolen, but it's like I that's always a project in my head that I want to do and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Well, when I launch my whatever it is, I know it's going to be in the form of a podcast / video. I want to interview you amongst a lot of people from Calhoun to give their story and experience, good, the bad,
for sure.
like
For
the
sure.
uncut, raw, everything. Because you
Yeah.
and I could say so much, and spend so much time just talking about
Right.
home that like it, it's a good place to grow up because it gives you this what you have now when
it's
you
just,
travel.
it's an edge of drive, I feel like, and to me, it's like I have all this small town qualities, but the part that's continued to drive me is the fact that it's like I don't want, like I just want bigger. Like
Yeah.
it's just like I didn't have internet until I was a senior, and when we did get it, it was dial up.
Yeah.
And then we didn't even have like running water until I was in high school.
And
little
you were
things like
big
that.
into tech too, so like the internet thing. Because I still remember you coming across our TVs like during a certain. I don't remember what. I wish we still had that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't. You may
Yeah.
not, but I still think like the nostalgia of these big TVs in the middle of the corners of the room, and I don't even remember all, but it was like the weather. Wasn't Zach on there with you? Wasn't it like Zach, Ashley?
Oh, for the broadcast and stuff.
Yeah, what
from
was-
so we started. It was a freshman class for Miss Yoke, and we had different options of doing like our assignment. We could do it like an oral like presentation. We could write a paper, or we could film and get creative. And we had these little flip cameras, and we chose to do that. Well, that kind of evolved. We enjoyed it so much that the next year, my sophomore year, we created a film class for it. So then we was able to do like broadcasts every month.
What was that called?
What was it called? We named it something, didn't we?
It got us out of class. It got us to stop, and it was like, oh, it's on everybody's TV.
Yeah.
It's like, yes.
Yeah, and that was just a neat thing. And then in the year, we would do like a recap, and that thing would be like an hour long. And I remember like we would spend our lunch in there. We would spend after school, we would work on it. And we was working on Windows Movie Maker. We wasn't working on Adobe. We wasn't working on DaVinci or anything like this.
That's what I learned on.
And we was putting these crazy like animations on it, and we thought we was doing some crazy things. And then we would export it and be like 2 gig. We were like, oh yeah, that's big and stuff. I mean, it's just insane of what things kind of like evolved to. But I mean, that had a lot of drive into like just like I remember doing one. We was doing a Halloween episode one time, and we got on. You remember those giant carts that at the end of the year they would like put a whole bunch of stuff in it and would take it to the dumpster or whatever.
Oh yeah.
So Stuart held me from like my pants and I was on the ground, and we kind of created our own like dolly system, but I was like the gimbal pretty much, and so they was running down the hall, and I was like just hanging on one of those cars because we didn't have it, and then I think we finally just got like a chair or something. But that is like a core memory in like photography for me, because I was like, we had to like innovate and do something like that, you know. And but yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, there's little things like that I'm hoping in 10 years from now I'm gonna be a content creator that is hopefully telling a story better. I mean, I've already looked at the content I've done, you know, from now, from just like last year. I've already gotten better, but it's just like I want to continue. I never want to plateau. I always want to continue to keep on going up and stuff.
Well, what I'm excited to see is I want, and I don't know if they still do it, but do you remember when we were in school when they would book people to come out and talk in the auditorium?
Isn't that
weird? I am waiting for that moment to where you and other people, alumni from that school, are called, and you're the one up there, and other people are up there that has now left and done things that are booked to come back. I feel like that is more of a success moment for me and other people than, you know, being championed in your hometown has to be like that feeling.
Well, that, and I've always thought in that same regard into being like the keynote speaker at graduation or something.
Absolutely.
I've thought about that tremendous. And it's such a, I don't know if it makes it like a self-centered type of, I don't know. It's just like, I want people to know that because I feel like in high school, I was an absolute punk shit. Like, I feel like I talked to everybody, but I was not doing, I was just young, man.
We all were.
And I feel, I talked to Zach about that recently and stuff, and I told him, I was like, dude, I wish I did things differently. I wish I was just different, you know, and stuff. And I think that has a little bit of a drive into it as well, because I want to show those people, hey, I'm a different person now.
That's where those nerves are from, too. Going back, like I was, and I won't use the words, but I was that piece of crap that fell into, you know, the poverty. So you're hanging out with these people that are the same way, and you're acting this exact same way, to the point to now I am so focused on my kids not having that same experience. That's what drove me.
Yeah.
Dude, not, you know, that whole feeling of like, I would much rather be judged by 20 million people on the internet than to handfuls of them in my hometown. Yeah,
it's insane. And I don't know if anyone that's watching this can relate to it, but it's such an interesting feeling. But one thing's for sure, though, Derek, Ken and I talk about it all the time. So we love the fact that, you know, you're killing it on the real estate side. You're always, you know, we always talk great things about you and stuff, and we always
appreciate that.
You know, supporting you. And then it's like you're with like Jim and Lynn. By the way, they're just some of the nicest people ever. And Lynn's known me ever since I was a freaking baby. So it's just.
You ought to see Jim now, dude.
Yeah.
He's funky as hell. He's got like this, like he showed me this cool picture. Like, I'm trying to get that beard like you, and like this guy in this photo, and like he has this wavy silver fox hair going on now. It's long. It's down to like his shoulders, and
there's just nice people, and I mean, and Calhoun's had so many people that supported me and stuff along the way too. I mean, the biggest thing that I never wanted to dive into drama. I wanted to be friends with everybody, and I think that just the open-mindedness of it, and but it's just like, just be nice to people. You can still be passionate and voice your opinion, but you also don't have to be a dick, you know. And they're just little simple things.
If you don't
like
agree,
that.
you just don't have to
just
say
move
anything
on and just
yeah.
go on and stuff. And but yeah, Derek, this has been amazing. I feel like we could literally chat for another 2 hours and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just, I always love talking to somebody from back home. It's a different conversation. It's neat though, because I just, like I said, I want to share my audience with you, with your audience as well, just because of the fact that like we've had those like really cool photography like conversations, and I know you're like your passion for it is completely opposite from some. So it's just
Yeah.
like showing that to somebody else is really cool. But we'll go ahead into the sponsor part of this. Guys, if you don't know already, this podcast is sponsored by Megan Nicole Photography Studios. I'll put her link in the description below. You can book it for boudoir, for mommy and me sessions, family sessions, headshots, anything that you're looking to do. She is available. So just go ahead and give her some love as well. Follow her on social media and go from there. All of Derek's info is going to be located in the description below too, so go ahead and check out all of his real estate website, his social medias. Go follow him on there as well. Give him some love, and if you're looking to buy a house, this is a guy you need to talk to right here, or land, house or land and stuff. I will put all of my stuff in the description as well. You can follow us. We do have a Discord that's open for West Virginia photographers and videographers, and we have a Facebook group as well. So if you're interested in that, just comment below that you're interested, and we'll send you a message. And you guys stay safe. Remember, never stop creating, and we'll see you in the next.